What is up, guys? You're about to listen to episode number 14 of the Third Floor Chronicles. That's right, guys. Can't believe we made it this far. Number 14. This week's special guest, Mr. Mitch Fatel. We recorded this Sunday, April 14th, right after the 7 o'clock show. The green room was a little hot, and by little, I mean extremely hot. I would say it's about 300 degrees in there after the show. So we use a little fan in the background. You might hear it during the interview, but don't worry, it doesn't interfere with the audio or anything like that. But I did want to give you a heads up in case you're like, man, what's up with this recording? What's going on? I expect more from the Third Floor Chronicles. Pay no mind, guys. Good interview. Mitch Fatel, episode number 14. Check it out. All right, Mitch, when did you first perform stand-up?
I actually started performing when I was 15 years old because I wanted to get girls in school, and I knew that I wasn't going to be good in sports. So I just started doing comedy. I started going around to clubs, and my mom would bring me to the clubs, and I would go on stage in Incredible Hulk pajamas, and I would say that I had to get to bed early because I had to get up for school the next day. And that was my big joke.
That was your closer?
That was my big one. And after that, it was really bad.
Do you recall
that was my opener. I went with my strong stuff first.
Do you recall your first experience?
Yeah, I totally remember. I thought I did really good, and afterwards my mom told me that I died.
How long did you think about doing stand-up before you actually tried it when you were 15?
I thought about doing stand-up actually I had never really had a lot of time to think about it because I thought about it when I was 15, and then instead of putting it off, I just decided right away to get on and start doing it. So I started pretty fast, but then I was really bad at first, so I didn't do it for a long time, and then I went back on again when I was like 18, and then I started getting really good.
When you started again when you're 18, how often were you doing open mics during the week?
Oh, when I started again, I was doing like 3 open mics a week. Looking back, I probably should have done more, but I found these ones that I felt really comfortable in, so I didn't stop doing them.
Did you have a specific writing process? Were you improvising? How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I had a roommate at the time, and the roommate, he used to actually go on stage and he would just improv stuff. And I was thinking that's how I had to do it. So I would go on stage and I would improv stuff, and I would be really not good at all. I would die. And I just was like, I didn't know what to do. And then one day I was watching a TV show, and Jerry Seinfeld was saying that the way he writes is he always writes a half hour a day. He said he writes sometimes an hour a day, and he just stares at a pad. Even if he doesn't write anything, he just puts it in. And I was like, well, if Jerry Seinfeld could do it, I could do it. So I started doing that, and I started doing a half hour in the morning and a half hour at night, and then it was really funny.
Did you think at first that improv was how comedy was?
I didn't know how comedy was. I just thought that, I used to be under the impression that the way someone else did it would be the right way to do it. And I learned that, there's no such thing as that. The thing is what you find is right for yourself is what you're supposed to do.
How long were you doing stand-up before you got your first paid gig?
I got paid, I think I was doing it like 6 months, and then I did a New Year's gig, and I was very excited because I got paid $50. And I thought that was the most money I could ever get paid in my entire life to do jokes. I couldn't believe I was stealing this money from them. And now I make about $150 a show, so it's pretty good.
Were you hosting?
Yeah, I was hosting. I was dying is what I was doing. I wasn't doing anything.
How much time did you do when you got your first pay? Like 10 or 15 minutes?
Yeah, probably about like 10 or 15 minutes, but it seemed like 4 hours because I was sweating and peeing myself and scared and coughing, and didn't think I'd ever really be good at it, but then I got good at it.
Did the getting paid outweigh the bombing?
Getting vagina outweighed the bombing. That was really the only reason I got into comedy, was that girls would let me see their vaginas, and when it started happening, I knew I had made the right career choice. Because I like vaginas, they're soft and wet, and I like to touch them with my tongue and my hand.
Who were some of your inspirations when you started listening to stand-up as a youngster?
Brian Ritchie was probably one of my big ones. Also, Steve Martin was huge for me. He was one of my favorites, and Jerry Seinfeld I really liked, and those were and Howard Stern actually was one of my most important influences. Even though he was a stand-up comedian, he was a big influence for me, learning to be honest.
Who was one of the first comics you worked with that you were actually a fan of?
That's a good question. Jake Johansson was a really famous comedian who had been on the Letterman show a lot. And when I did a show with him and he knew who I was, I felt very excited that I had made it as a comedian.
How long did it take for you to start featuring in clubs?
I started featuring pretty fast. A lot of comics are always worried about when they can start featuring. I didn't ever worry about it. I just felt really, really honored that I was working, and I never asked to get featured. I just started getting to the point where I was getting better than, I don't think I hate when comics are always like, oh, I should do this, I should do this. You shouldn't do anything. It's like if you're meant to do it, it'll slowly start to happen. It got to the point where people couldn't follow me because I'm so funny. And so they would say like, oh, we have to put you in front of this guy, and then all of a sudden I was headlining. And I think that that's the way to do it, is you have to just be really special like me.
In 2006, you won the Best Stand-Up Comic at Aspen Comedy Festival.
Yes.
Did that translate into anything right away for you? More gigs?
More vagina.
More
Yeah. It actually got me an agent, which I didn't have at that time, and a manager, and they started then working for me and trying to get me other stuff, so it was good. But, you know, like everything else, it's like I didn't do it to win anything. I just was honored that I was at the festival, and then when I won it, it made me feel really good. And then, you know, I feel like if you're meant to go somewhere, you will go that place. Like, it just, cream always rises to the top, and I just kind of kept plugging away until I was good enough that people started putting me on shows and stuff.
Was it a little overwhelming for you when you got the agent and manager? Was it kind of like, wow, what's going on?
No, it was actually kind of, I felt like it was time, because you're in the business long enough that you start seeing other people that you know you're better than start getting more successful. And once I started seeing that, I knew it was time for me. And you just start to feel it. You know that you're meant to do more, you know?
In 2004, you came out with your first album. How long did you prepare for that before you actually recorded it?
Do you smell that? What's that smell, Brian? Did you put on cologne or something?
It was the Axe.
Oh, you put it on?
Axe.
What is it? Is it
fucking stink like...
But what is it, like a deodorant?
It's like a deodorant. It's a body spray. Dude, I was putting this shit under my arms, and it's not good for you.
Oh, man.
At first, you're supposed to just spray your clothes. You know that shit, Joe?
I've got such an erection. I don't know why. It's making me uncomfortable. I think I may like cock. This is a very, very big exclusive on your podcast. Never before Mitch Fatel admits that he loves cock.
Hair shampoo and then the body spray.
So how long did you work on your first album before you actually recorded it?
Oh, I didn't even know about putting out a CD. I didn't even understand the idea of putting out a CD, because I thought once you do comedy, like, how could you put out a CD? The joke is done. But my manager kept saying, you gotta put out a CD, you gotta put out a CD, and I was like, whatever. And so I had a guy tape it, and then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I was getting famous because people started like calling me up and saying that I was getting requested at all these comedy clubs, and I didn't realize that my CD was selling, and now of course it's a classic.
When you record your first album, do you learn anything for the second album, or is it just kind of the same process over and over and over?
Yeah, I think you keep learning stuff. It's funny you say that, because the first time I did Letterman, I had been in comedy for 10 years, or 5 years, and right after I did Letterman, I felt like, oh, now I'm getting it. Like, it's ironic, I look back that I did something and I was like, thought I was good, and then I look back and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't even know anything back then. So I think every year you get better. Every show, every CD, every time you get on stage, you learn something still. I've been in there like over 20 years now, and you still learn a little more about the art of comedy.
What was more stressful for you, the Letterman appearance or your Comedy Central Presents?
Probably the most stressful thing for me was that people would find out that I had sex with a 16-year-old girl when I was 30. But other than that, the most stressful thing for me was probably that, you know, I think the Letterman thing, I was probably the most stressed that I've ever been, because I was seeing myself do something that I had grown up watching. Like, you know, I grew up watching the Letterman show, and I always thought that that was like, you know, a show that famous people went on, and then suddenly I was on it. So that freaked me out a little.
When you did the Comedy Central, did you have any creative control in the editing process?
No. I mean, I had definitely, like, was able to give them ideas of what I would like to do or not do, but basically that's up to them. They're paying a lot of money for it, so they make the decisions.
So was there anything about it that you were like, oh, that joke doesn't work like that, or the transition wasn't accurate? Did anything just kind of
no comment? Zero comment on that, my friend. Trying to get me to say something to ruin my career, motherfucker. God damn, bitch. I'll have you killed. I'll have you knifed. Brian, knife this guy.
Axe. Right, that's the axe.
Axe.
What's the longest stretch you've ever been on the road?
I've been on the road for 15 years now. I'm never home. The longest I've ever been home has been 2 weeks, put it that way.
Got it. So you go home after each show and then go back on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I have a fiance now that has a very wet vagina, and so I like to go home and I like to put my penis in it, and then I go back out on the road.
Do you work new material on the road, or do you have like a home club?
I used to have a home club in New York, but now that I am on the road so much, I have to try out my material in the middle of other jokes. So whenever you're watching my show and you're like, that joke sucked, that means it was brand new.
Do you specifically put it in a certain part of your set?
Yeah, I put it in, well, usually what I do is I'll put it in where, like, right between two bits that I know always work. So that way I can just slide it in before people understand what hit them. And then you can see they're like, oh, that wasn't funny. And then by that time they're confused.
What's been your favorite city to perform at last couple
I
years?
love Tampa and Fort Lauderdale and Dallas and Minnesota and not Ohio.
What's been the biggest surprise on the road, good or bad?
Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah.
You ever have a situation where you've had someone steal one of your jokes?
Yeah, Brian Ritchie is known. That's actually my opening act. He's a good dude, by the way. Everybody should go check him out at brianritchie.com. And he's really, really good. And tell him that he should stop using axe, because it's disgusting. Yeah, of course people steal stuff. But, you know, Jay Leno said it best. He said if you have to write them faster than they steal them. And if you're talented, that's always going to come out in the wash sooner or later anyway.
Describe the worst time you ever bombed.
Right now. I don't think I've said one thing funny in this entire interview, and quite honestly, I'm hoping it's over soon.
On that note,
I'm joking. This is really good. You're actually a good, cool guy, and you actually did a great interview. But I had to say that because I'm funny, and I always have to make it funny. But seriously, this was really boring. No, I'm joking. This is really good. No, I never bomb. I have bombed before. 350 black people at a BET comedy night. They put me up, and they all started booing and telling me that they were going to fuck my mother.
Nice.
That's actually a true story.
Last but not least, what's the next project you're working on?
Making sure never to do any of these podcasts ever again. And I talked to my manager. Seriously, that was really fun. You're a really good guy, and I enjoyed doing it. And also, I want to tell everybody, is this on?
Yes.
To go to I have a new radio show on Howard 101 on Sirius XM. It's Mondays at 7 p.m. It's called Sex and Swinging with Mitch and Jessica. I talk about the fact that my fiance is a hot swinger, and she lets me have sex with other girls, and I'm going to let her have sex with another guy one day. And if you can listen to us talk about it on the radio, and you can go to facebook.com/sexandswinging, and you can sign up and see our next show, and you can write to us and everything and see how hot she is.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you, Mitch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your help, man.
Sure.
That was actually a really, really fun interview. I appreciate it.
There you have it, folks. Episode number 14 is in the books, as we always like to say. And if you like what you heard from Mitch, be sure to check him out online, MitchFatel.com. He's on Amazon. Get the DVDs and the CDs. He's all over YouTube. He also has a new Sirius XM radio show. It's on Howard 101, Mondays at 7 o'clock. So be sure to go support Mitch if you're a fan. Also, visit my website, guys, joeriga.com, JOERIGA.com. And on behalf of the Tampa Improv and Matthew Baldwin, we will see you next time.